All right, everybody, welcome back to the Champions of Small Business podcast. We're here officially on episode number 3, and I'm super, super excited for today's guest. I'm here with Mr. Joshua Smith with Your Speaking Voice LLC, right? Is that
Yep,
okay.
You got it.
I want to make sure I had it right. So Josh does a variety of things. You're a life coach. You are a public speaking coach,
Yes.
an entrepreneurial coach, systems, processes, you name it. Sounds like you kind of have your hand in it.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, and hopefully master of most.
Yes.
No, that's a really cool, unique business here, man. I'm looking forward to kind of discovering more about that, because I think it's something a lot of people maybe not, especially other small business owners, may not know that that's a service even available to them, or kind of what the benefits are of having someone like that, in their corner. But before we get into that, kind of walk me through here, man. Tell me who Joshua Smith is. Tell me how you decided to, or why you decided to start this kind of business, and where you're at today.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Of course.
I really appreciate being part of the podcast and being the third guest.
Yeah, man, you're one of the first couple.
Yeah.
It's special.
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's always great to talk to someone starting out. And I have to say that to even talk about how I even got to this point, I have to tell you a little bit about where I even have come from when it comes to that.
Okay.
And a few years ago, I was one of those people that did the grind, worked 8 to 5 and always did what I was supposed to do. I worked for government. I still do to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But something happened to me where I started to realize that there was something really wrong. And it wasn't just about physically feeling wrong, nothing about being emotionally wrong. It was just this feeling that there's something really wrong happening mentally with me. So about 3 months before the turn of events happened for me, I was doing great. It was right after Christmas of 2019. We're heading into 2020.
Okay.
So I was thinking, man, I'm top of the world. And I'm thinking, wow, things are really doing well for me. Got a good job. I'm working on all kinds of different things. Project Rise, I was involved with a lot of different nonprofit organizations.
Okay.
And went on to a trip to Paris, France, where I was
Nice.
I was on top of the world with helping out with other people in an organization called Toastmasters, which is
Yeah.
a nonprofit that's almost 100 years old, working
Yeah.
on public speaking and other skills.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the day before my 33rd birthday, my body said, "Nope, I don't think you can do this anymore," and I wanted to end my life.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's something that you don't normally prepare yourself for.
Right.
And I remember the day very well. It was something that every single little part of me said, I can't do this. My body started shutting down. It wasn't just because of everything that I was doing, but it was because of having all these thoughts in my head for all these years saying, you're not good enough, or you can't do this, or you're not important. And so I remember the cries for help. I was messaging people. I was on my Facebook telling people, like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to end my life. And thankfully, there were some people that took that seriously.
Good.
Called the cops to help me out, get me to some mental health services in Carlisle, which is where I am, and took me down to Brookhaven Institute down in Hagerstown, Maryland, where I spent 3 days trying to reevaluate what the heck just happened.
Yeah.
So flash forward about 3 years later, and I'm on the mend after going through many years of therapy, and I realized that the biggest thing that I didn't have growing up as a kid, and something that I yearn for a lot, is having people realize my true potential.
Yeah.
And wanting to help others. So I started the business, and I wanted to start the business not to just meet new people and have great conversations with them to be able to help them out with whatever situation or problem they have, but I feel that we as a society sometimes undervalue the importance of having that mental health conversation. And I found that if we are able to work on the best version of ourselves, we can unlock unlimited potential within ourselves. So I started open this business. I've been open now for about 4 months, and I'm enjoying it because I'm getting to meet people that genuinely want to work on themselves, and they're aligning themselves with what I've
Right.
been through.
Man, that's such a there's so many places we can go with that, but it's you raise such an important it's such an important fact that us as people, as entrepreneurs, as mothers or fathers or brothers or sisters, um, like it's okay to ask for help. And man, I'm so glad that you decided to to reach out to some people, and that those people took you seriously, man, because this world's a better place with you.
Oh,
I've seen
thanks.
what you've done so far, man, and how much you've been and what you've been putting into your business. So I'm so glad that you were able to turn something like that into a positive, to 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 see that these things were maybe missing in your upbringing or missing in your childhood or in your adult life, and you were able to you're cognizant of that and able to turn that around and help others. It's a story that I think every business needs to have a why.
Yeah.
And if your why is strong enough, you can endure anyhow.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's important too to say, because some people have the tools at their disposal and some people don't. We all come from all kinds of walks of life
Yeah.
where we think that, oh, because you have X, Y, and Z, you're important and that you know how to do this. But the reality is that might not be the case. And what I've been finding, especially as I work with people and have great conversations with them about where they're at, is that we're all over the spectrum.
Oh yeah.
So whether that is something that you think that it's something that you can handle and address, or you feel that it's important to kind of maybe do a little bit of work and see where that goes. I've seen people wanting to embrace it all the way, and while some people are like, "Whoa, I don't know if I can really do this. I don't have that ability or that confidence." And
Right.
that's one of the values that I have too for the business is I want people to realize that they have this unlimited confidence factor inside of them too.
Yeah, man. So you took all of this. What was that process like for you to 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 decide to make a whole business out of this? Like who were you trying to go at? Like are you trying to help other like young people, or are you focusing on kind of the entrepreneurs out there that kind of need a little bit of push?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a lot of it depends on who the person is that I'm willing to work with too. I feel that I work with all kinds of people, young, middle age, old, doesn't matter where you're at.
Yeah.
I love working with all kinds of different people and different groups, and I've been fortunate enough that, and this is something I haven't shared yet, but the past 13 years that I've been working with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I've been able to see all kinds of different things to help improve others. And when it comes to processes, with helping different types of executive level decision making,
Right.
things of that nature. So I'm transferring a lot of skills that some people don't get to see when it comes to our government, being able to work publicly and being able to transfer it into a business model that is helping others
Yeah.
maybe think of something that is normally not thought about. And I know that sounds kind of a predicament where you're thinking, and I'm sure your audience will think, wait, government being efficient through Josh
Yeah.
in a private sector business? And I say, yes, absolutely. I'm dispelling the myth.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when you think to take someone like government, think about how many employees they have across the state.
Thousands of people.
Right.
Actually, it's around 70,000 employees as of today in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Just in Pennsylvania alone.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, I hate to sound calloused by this, but when you're herding cattle, you got to have like you got to have a good cattle chute.
Yes.
And it's kind of the same thing here. Those cattle chutes are the processes, and then so yeah, it's definitely counterintuitive that the government's got good processes, but when you think about it, it makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yes.
That if they don't have processes, then public utilities don't don't run. And dude, I think processes it's one of those words that we all know about, and even my own business, we talk about it all the time. Like process, gotta put those processes in place, gotta put those processes
Yes.
in place. And it's so freaking important, because if you grow without those processes, it's like building a house without a solid foundation.
Yes,
You know?
and I think that's so true, especially when it comes to government, because you're working on not only just one piece of it, which some people think, oh, you only do one piece of it. Well, yeah, there's some people that are specialized in which they have to do that. And
Yeah.
if you look at the sheer amount of volume that comes in, you're serving 67 counties in the Commonwealth. That's really important to
Right.
make sure that there's a few people specialized in that. But you also have to be able to take it from the micro level and apply it to the macro level. So
Right.
looking at the bigger picture, which, as you said too, process is so important, and that's been something that I've been driven to do even over half of my career in doing that.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna stick on processes for a second. What's like what would you say is probably like the most important process for like a small business that's just starting out, or what's the most common process that you see missing from a company that could help individuals or entrepreneurs?
Believe it or not, you, as in the person listening to this, can be the missing piece. So that's anybody within any stage of it. And I think, especially for small businesses, it's even more important than ever to have a wide diversity of opinion and ideas so that
Right.
you're checking yourself. And I know that, even especially for myself, what I've learned even in the last few months opening my own business, that sometimes it's really helpful to be able to bounce ideas off of somebody, especially somebody that's like-minded, somebody that is having the same drive, to make sure that you have those ideas being worked on continuously, so that it isn't staying stagnant, because we can easily fall into what I like to call groupthink. And I know that's a cliche term that's mostly used
Sure.
in,
Yeah, yeah.
in a lot of different circles. But I think that when we are talking about helping others, which small businesses are the driver for all of those things, being able to have that conversation and be able to have it with someone that you can trust, whether that's a best friend, a family member, even somebody that you hire on as a consultant that kind of helps you with that.
Yeah.
It really helps to get another picture, another mindset of it. And that's a lot of what I do too, is it's not just about seeing one side of it, but seeing all the sides of it.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times as the driving entrepreneur, it's hard to get that zoomed out vision.
Yes.
You know, because you have this vision in your head, and it's like a flashlight. You know, the flashlights that you could kind of zoom in and zoom out, and
Yeah.
they'll kind of come to a perfect point and then come out. I know for me as an entrepreneur, a lot of times I'm stuck in this little area, and obvious answers are just around me, but I can't. I'm too zoomed in to be able to hone in on them, and it takes someone like an outsider to see that stuff for you.
And I think a lot of people assume that, oh, this is going to cost me a lot of money, and I don't know if I have the resources, especially being a small business owner or even a medium-sized owner, I'm going to be able to do that because costs are really tight. But if you think about it, taking those ideas and putting it into what I like to call like a strategic bucket, if you will, being able to propel yourself to moving towards that direction of your mission or vision, which if you don't even have that, your business might not even be able to go to the next step.
Right.
Having that is something that is so important so that you can help yourself with what we've been talking about, which is helping yourself with processes.
Yeah.
To getting yourself to that next level where it's absolutely needed so that you're able to help others, whether that's a small group of people that you're helping out with, or you're helping out different counties all across the United States. Those are things that we can all focus on if we're just willing to accept new ideas.
Right. Right. So, something that you touched on there that I think is so important, just for like everybody that's listening, and maybe business owners or someone who's considering opening a business, is talking and asking for help. I know it's something that I have always struggled with, and it's funny, this topic has come up in every podcast I've done so far, and simply just asking for help, and having a network of people, whether that's if you have an executive leadership team in your office, or you have coaches, or different consultants, or if you're struggling with your mental health, like, it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to have all the answers. And if I could go and scream this from a rooftop, I would. Actually, I might even. We're roofers. We have ladders.
I left my bullhorn in the car. Let's go do it.
But dude, it's so important, man. And I think your story really sets that tone beautifully. That it's that help in business is a good thing. It's not a weakness.
Well, There's something else I haven't shared yet that I've actually just found out within the last 7 or 8 weeks since we're recording this, is that I've actually been diagnosed as an adult with autism.
Okay.
So now that has changed so much about a lot of those things that I was just mentioning earlier about where is that missing piece that I couldn't really latch on as to why these issues are always happening.
Yeah.
So now it's been able to help me explore new avenues of support. So one of the biggest things which is helping me to understand this better is now those same processes are what I've been doing and teaching with others with my business. I've been using even in my own life, setting tasks, setting goals for myself, making sure that I stay on task with those.
Yeah.
And that has not been an easy journey even for myself, which I know that's really hard to say for somebody that owns a business that's helping others, but
Yeah.
I struggle with the same thing that I teach others.
I mean, that's pure authenticity. I mean, I wouldn't, I don't know if I would trust somebody who is helping me with business processes if they were a complete expert, or they weren't also, because it's a revolving door, right? Processes change. I mean, your basic processes don't always change, right? You have your everyday ones, but you have to be flexible and learning how to adapt to change sometimes. And I think your diagnosis. I have a daughter who's diagnosed autistic as well.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think there's something beautiful and something to be celebrated about neurodivergent people, because there is, how do I say this? There's you come up with probably some unique coping mechanisms, maybe not always healthy, but you come up with coping mechanisms that most neurotypical people probably wouldn't really consider.
Yes.
And I think it's a beautiful, as crushing as it is, and as how, and the challenges that it can bring. I think, I mean, my daughter has taught me more than what I've probably taught her, and it's just responding to her and learning how to respond to, the things that are unique about her, and her way of looking at things is just great. And actually, I think it could serve you in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Yes, and it has. And when I was able to finally put a name to it, which by the way I have been tested before when I was a child, but there was no such thing back then in the 90s when I was getting tested.
Totally different criterias and tests back then.
Yes. So after 3 decades and after getting an answer, finally, one of the things that I've been able to embrace as a result of that is exactly what you said, is now this is a whole new world. And I think for some business owners too, I think this is important to consider, is that there's really 2 options that you always have whenever you make a decision, or even with things that go on in your life personally, that they're both intertwined. And there's really 2 options. You can either A, embrace what is happening and be able to move past that, meaning that you're able to always go through the challenges and be able to rise to that next level to overcome that challenge. Or you have option B, which is, I'm going to submit, I'm going to give up, I'm going to close the door, I'm going to, in my case, as I mentioned, in my life.
Yeah.
So I really had 2 choices, and that was even something even right before my 33rd birthday, which ironically enough, I didn't mention this, was right before the COVID pandemic too.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So even with all those things that were happening in my life, I had 2 choices, and I decided I want to be the change that I want to see in my life, and I have to embrace this, and I have to find the help finally to do that.
Wow.
And that's why even to this day, and like you said, Charlie, I have to agree, you have to also take it with persistence, and that's with, for me, seeing a therapist and seeing them weekly, which has been now over 150 sometimes over these past 3 years, to finally realize what my value is, and that's what's translated into so much. So I think anybody can take that lesson of, you have really 2 choices, and I think that if you're here listening to this, you're really deciding to go ahead and do it and make that happen.
Right. Yeah, man. And there's nothing wrong with talking to a therapist. I have a therapist as well, man. I love him. Yeah. He's one of my best friends. Like it's again back to asking for help and realizing that the potential that you have, no matter what obstacles stand in your way.
And I was one of those people that didn't embrace it because I thought, and I think this is where some people think that in their culture that we're like this. Oh, well, I know I'm tough enough. I'm going to go through it no matter what.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really the case.
Yeah.
That I've been learning is, oh, it is okay to ask and
Yeah.
ask for help when needed, because sometimes we need to have that different perspective.
Sure.
So that's been really a light bulb moment in my life where in the past I would have just muddled through it and would have just coped with it. But
Yeah.
now it's turning it on its head and saying, how can I use this and leverage this to my advantage?
So did processes and the writing processes down and documenting these processes, is that something that kind of helps you cope with maybe some of the things that come with being a diagnosed autistic person? Do you see that as something that really helps you kind of fill in the gaps?
It is interesting to be asked that question because no one's asked me that in a long time, and now the more new information that I've had and being able to put it into these puzzle pieces that we have, I've realized that absolutely it has made such a big difference. And for some people that are like, oh, another spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, let's do a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And we don't have to make it boring. We can make it colorful. We can make it with graphics.
Sure.
We can make it with something that is visually pleasing, especially if you're not a numbers person, which we all know. I've had to pay attention, especially being open to what are my numbers? What am I looking like? Do I need to bring in more revenue? What do I need to do to cut expenses? But I think what it's helped me to do, other than looking at the financial side, is to really turn the dial on listening to people authentically and being able to understand exactly where they are and know what buttons when to push, because we're all not ready sometimes for what is those changes in our life.
Sure, you're never gonna be 100% ready.
Yeah. So I think it's helped me with not only building processes in the Commonwealth for over 13 years, it's helped me start my business.
Yeah.
I think that it's given me a unique skill set that some people would struggle with. And I'm not saying that that's not a bad thing. That means that I'm able to help other people if they are going through that. And that's what I enjoy doing the most, especially if someone comes up to me saying, I have this idea, but I just don't know how to get it off from paper into reality.
Right.
Those are the things that I love doing the most because it allows me to work a side of my brain that normally it's about, okay, you need to do these steps. And a lot of people need those sort of things because that's their neurodivergent way of learning about things too.
Right.
So that creates a lot of dynamicism, I think, for me as an individual helping others. But I get to see how other people learn, and that enriches me more than anything.
Man, that's great. You have such a good why. You have such a good, and that's. I mean, that makes me think and know that you can be super successful in this business. Like we said, man, because I've never seen someone with a burning passion. Like I can feel it coming across the table. Like you got passion for this stuff, brother. It's awesome.
Well, I don't want to burn the table because of that that we're doing this on.
Dude, and no, it's just really cool. So tell me, how did you were working for the Commonwealth, you were learning processes, building processes for them on how to organize 70,000 people's work. What made you take the leap and go into business ownership? Were you working for somebody else doing work similar to this? And
yeah, I've had a wide variety of jobs that I'm continuing to build myself up into, and those are the things that as I even work on this business on the side, I really wanted to see something come to the forefront where people are able to take advantage of what I've been able to learn. But if you want to get specific, I mean, a lot of things that I've been able to do was many years ago with Pennsylvania's right to know law, which isn't necessarily about hazardous chemicals or anything like that. This is about actually records requests, getting more information about transparency and what government's doing. Back in 2008, that law changed. In 2009, that's when it really started to be ramped up with more access to records. So I was hired in 2011 to do a lot of those requests for the Department of Transportation. That took me, after a few years, I said, I don't know if this is really my jam, over to our retirement system where I worked for a few years doing budgeting and procurement, learning all the ins and outs, and those are very detailed, process oriented tasks.
For sure.
That moved me then back over to PennDOT for a little bit, where I worked on some data analytics, visualization, running reports, making it so that I was able to not only provide senior leadership opportunities, but also being able to work on some things that would help enhance some of the business processes across the agency that specifically driver and vehicle services. But even the last few years, I've been able to have the opportunity of doing not only working with the blind, which that's a whole unique story in itself. I don't think we could ever fit this in a podcast.
I got that on part 2.
Yeah, that'll be part 2 if you bring me back. But the other thing is that what I've learned even in the last few years is just recycling some of those skill sets at a higher level, so that we're making more cost-saving, process-driven decisions. And that's really been a lot of my focus over the last few years. And that's been helpful for me, especially as I've been recovering from wanting to end my life to now I want to help other people's lives.
Yeah.
Taking those skill sets and transferring them over to the private sector, which I'll be honest, I've been schooled a few times already about how this works, because it's not the same fast and furious rules as what it is in the public sector. It's a lot more, it's a different environment working with other people that are focused and driven in the private sector.
For sure, yeah. I mean, this is a totally different animal. I mean, there's parameters you have to work in that public sector, whereas out here in the private sector, you don't know what you're gonna experience necessarily.
Yes.
It's totally different. So, tell me about public speaking. I'm interested in talking about public speaking because one of the reasons I started this podcast is I am scared, of public speaking.
Yeah.
I had to speak in front of a networking group a couple weeks ago, and I was shaking like a leaf, and there was like 7 people in there.
Yeah.
I had a really bad stutter when I was a kid. Until I was 6 years old or so, I couldn't really get words out very well, and I got made fun of, and forever I've had this fear of public speaking or even opening my mouth to a new person. So this is again one of those things where I was like, screw it. If this podcast doesn't do well, it's okay. But I'm trying something new.
Yes.
And I feel like I have a good message to spread. And if I sound dumb, so be it.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe sounding dumb is what some people want to hear. They don't want it polished. They want real conversations between real people.
And it's funny you say that, because I've been counting all your filler words as we've been going through here in my head. So you have about 15 of them so far, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you some help afterwards.
Yeah.
But
I might have some unhealthy or some noticeable, things that I lean on to get me through the stuttering, but it's something that, I never learned a good way to cope with it. It was, I was kind of like just immerse yourself and you're going to kind of sink or swim kind of thing. And I probably picked up a lot of bad habits from that, but
that's really a big part of it, is that nowadays, especially with some kids that I've seen going through school, they're not getting some of those soft skills because they're being taught with a certain curriculum that they have to learn because of whether the Senate and House of Reps, whether it's state or federal level, have mandated it. But what I've been seeing is cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Cell phones and digital conversations, whether that's through all the various types of platforms, thinking of Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, all those things.
Mm-hmm. I've
I've seen that more so that we're talking about pictures and sending content that way as opposed to the spoken word, which ironically enough, my business being called Your Speaking Voice is about addressing all those different things. But my biggest passion about public speaking is something that I have to tell you that my sister also was a stutterer growing up. So I completely respect what you've been through, Charlie. And I'm telling you that you're doing very well. I would have never even noticed unless you pointed it out, which you did very good. But I'll tell you too. But I also tell you too, I also had a speech impairment growing up as a kid. So words such as R's, TH sounds, things like thermometer would throw me off. So I have to even stop myself sometimes, even at 36 years of age, which is, that's my age. I'm a young person.
Yeah, me too.
But I have had to stop myself and be, whoa, am I saying this right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure when I listen back with this, that I'm going to see, I really said that in a weird way. I don't know why I said it that way. But the art of public speaking isn't necessarily about wondering what other people are going to say. And I know that's like the biggest fear.
Sure, that's what everyone.
Yeah,
that's everyone's fear. Yeah.
actually, the studies still prove that the number one biggest fear in anything is public speaking. It's more than death itself. So that's been true for many years and many decades now. That speaking in front of a group of people, whether it's small, medium, and large, is still a challenge. And I was one of those people myself where I wouldn't be able to look at someone face to face in the eye or even be able to give constructive presentations because I was so worried about what I was saying and what other people were going to think of me.
Right.
That really was the biggest barrier. So I mentioned Toastmasters earlier. Toastmasters is a great opportunity to do that. Whether you are joining online, which there's many online clubs, but there's also the in-person clubs that are finally coming back into fruition over the last year or so. Yeah, after COVID.
Yeah.
But what I've been able to do in my public speaking journey is ask myself this question: what do I want my audience to get out of this? And how vulnerable am I willing to be? Because once I started to realize that this was about what I was willing to share as opposed to what other people were expecting from me, the game changed completely.
Interesting.
And it was because of knowing that I got all these things that I could talk about. There are so many great topics out there in this world today that I feel more than ever people need to hear. And it's all a matter of just walking into a meeting for the first time, whether you're thinking of Toastmasters or even in my world of being a coach, working with somebody that wants to be able to find a way to communicate effectively in all kinds of different ways. And I'll give you a quick example. I've worked with a woman out in the Philadelphia area just recently, and she was getting ready to work on this presentation, which was going to involve a lot of different people that had a lot of money to invest. And she was really afraid of what had happened to her a few years ago with something that she experienced as a negative reaction to a presentation that she gave. So she came to me wanting to work on herself.
Okay.
But what she's learned through that process, which there's some things have changed, and I'm still working with her. But the one thing that she started to see as the light bulbs turning on is it wasn't about what was happening with those people that were impacting her. It was her deep-seated fear that was actually hindering her.
Yeah.
To the point that it would make her freeze.
Right.
And getting in front of an audience. So, I always say to people, and here's some free advice. No, nothing that had to be solicited from me. The biggest thing that I would say to anybody that is afraid of just starting with their public speaking journey, or even just speaking in front of an audience, whether it's just giving a presentation, especially for a small business owner, especially we're talking to these individuals today too, is you really don't want to think about not just the people that you're impacting, but what you are doing to impact them.
Right.
That if you start to ask yourself the question, what am I giving as value to others? That's what will make you seem like you stand out from the rest.
Right.
The rest of it, being polished, making yourself presentable, making the organization happen, those will all come together.
That stuff would all come with time.
Yes.
And I'm a big believer in, to serve others, and that will come back onto you. So that's a really good piece of advice, man. If you're truly passionate about what you're saying, that same networking meeting that I was telling you about, I got up there and I spoke about something that I know and I love, and it's about sharing content online, and it's about being vulnerable with your content and helping people. And it's amazing how easily the words came out. Like I said, I was in my truck shaking like a leaf before I went in there, but when I went in and was talking about something that I was like, okay, you know what, I love this. I really do truly love helping people, and I love educating people, that it came off so much easier. So when you have a burning, I guess where we all got our first start in public speaking was standing up in front of a sixth grade social studies classroom, reading off about Christopher Columbus, or reading off about whatever plethora of things that you don't really care about, that you don't have a passion for. So I think you raised such a good. It's for the small business owners there is out there that are listening. If you bring passion to what you're doing, you're going to set yourself up for a much easier time, or not, and not to say that it would be easy, but it'll help you to never really lose sight of the goal.
And I say that to people too, and you bring up a good point that I really want to stress is that if you don't know what you're doing in terms of what that messaging is, you might be proficient in building a roof or working on a deck or maybe helping somebody with their taxes. But if you don't have a good mission behind what you're doing, if you don't have a good vision as to where you are trying to take the business or even yourself, a lot of people might not resonate with that.
Yeah.
And branding is so important when it comes to that too. And it's not just about what you're doing as an individual, it's what you're doing as a whole. It's not just about what you can give as expert knowledge, because I can go to Google and type in how to fix a roof all by myself.
Yeah.
Or I can go into Google and say, especially with AI nowadays, I can go in and say, please do my taxes with this information, which I obviously wouldn't recommend because there's a lot of things that need to be worked out when it comes to AI. But put it in a hypothetical though. If you were to do those sort of things, I could do that. You know, I could challenge myself.
Mm-hmm.
What we really crave more than anything, more than ever before in the last 20 years since the advent of technology is, although we're so close together, we are more further apart than ever before.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why communication is such an important thing more than ever before.
And the point of this podcast is to kind of fight against, what kind of part of what you were just saying there, that we've become more global and more disconnected as a society, even though we're closer together, right? We can chat with people, we can watch TikToks all day long, or we can FaceTime with people, but we're losing the human element that goes into a lot of what we experience in society. And I'm sure you may have heard on the way over, I think you said you were listening to one of the episodes of the podcast that one of my driving forces here is to challenge people to bring their dollars local at a rate of just $50 per month. And I think that all that correlates perfectly with what you're saying here is, that the personal connection that you make with a small business while also just spending $50 a month can add $450 million a year to our local economy if everyone in our area did it. And actually, I forget what point I was making.
While you're thinking of that, I actually thought of something too.
Yeah, hit me.
Because
I'm not a perfect podcast host yet. I'm still working.
No, you're doing a good job. But you made me think of this too. Is that everything that we do as a small business is not just about feeding into these bigger corporations that ultimately, you could do a deep dive and figure out where the money is going, mm-hmm. but you know that without doing any research, if I work with a small business owner, that return is instantaneous, like a snap of the fingers.
Yes.
So if you know that you're doing that and you're doing it with passion and knowing that you're not just touching that individual that is helping you with whatever service that you're providing or a product that you're providing, you are empowering them to maybe in the future be able to offer more, to be able to provide more opportunity for the community as a whole too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for somebody in my business, I always want to see people not only just take that idea and make it to the next level, because I want them to find their voice,
mm-hmm.
but I want them to have what is something in one of my other values in my business, which is about having determination,
mm-hmm.
the ability to say, yes, these are the things that I really want to work on to help myself get to that next level. And if you have that impact statement on merchandise that you sell or promotional items that you give out for free, or you do that on every business card, it could be as cheap as that, putting on the back of your business card of what that impact is. You're going to make such a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you share your mission statements, share your core values with people. We have it written up on our wall out here. We have these whiteboards all over and through the office, and we have them written down. We give out a core value bonus to each of our guys every single week if we see them, practicing one of our core values in that previous week. We give you a little gift card, right? And that's it. Your core value, your main philosophy, your why needs to bubble up and be part of who you are as a business.
Yes,
every single day.
Absolutely.
is there a is there a large business that people could support you instead of supporting like this large business? Like what's like is AI threatening your job? Is things like something like BetterHelp threatening the kind of business that you run?
Absolutely. And, I always think, and this, I'm really glad you bring that up because I think sometimes people have the perception of, these people have to have 5-star ratings on the Google app when I go and research them and where
Mhm.
they're located at, or I better see all positive reviews because if I don't, then I'm not going to work with them.
Right.
And I want to push back on that a little bit
Absolutely.
because there are people in this world that it doesn't matter what you do, you try to please them as much as you can, you're never going to please them.
That's right.
And I have been able to really see a lot of that, and it's kind of interesting for somebody as a consultant coaching will be saying, well, you should disregard them, and that's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying though is there's the realization that not everybody's going to give you a 5-star review.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to give you a tip because that's just what they've been programmed in their minds to say. This is what is going to happen, and this is how society accepts it as.
Sure.
And some people want to buck that.
Yeah.
But what I will say to somebody that is thinking about, whether they want to use a small business or not, let me give you a perfect example. And this is in the thanks to the Toastmasters community, I have this example in that people were trying to use AI to write their own speeches,
Mhm.
and it's easy nowadays. AI, please tell me a 5 to 7 minute speech that details the computations of a Tesla battery and how long it will last and why I should buy into a Tesla as a result of that.
Right.
And I'm sure that AI will give you a great speech to give you that you can present to others. But here's the problem with that is that there's no personal element with it. And it goes back to exactly what we've been talking about earlier is you want to have that personal connection.
Yeah.
I would say that for people like myself, especially starting out and now having this sort of threat, I guess you could call it,
Mhm.
I actually want to say we embrace it. And there's a right way to embrace it, and there's a wrong way.
Sure.
Just like I said earlier, I had two options in my life earlier. Whether I want to embrace the challenge or I just want to cave into it.
Right.
It is the same principle here in that we can use this and make our businesses thrive more than ever before. And I will be the first person to tell you, fine, go ahead and use an AI. But what I'll also tell you too is you will not find somebody that is more passionate and more committed to helping you get to that next level
Yep.
than a human being.
That's right. AI's got nothing on you, my man.
Yeah, nothing. AI's got nothing on your speaking voice.
Well,
But what I do have to say though is there are people more experienced than me, and I will freely say to you, I actually work with people that I get mentored by that are definitely older than me,
Sure.
and they have a lot of wealth of experience. What I say to people that are saying, well, I don't know if I should trust somebody that is young as you, Josh. I say to them, think about what the possibilities could be if you work with someone that is younger.
Yeah.
Someone that has been through a lot of these different experiences, but also has a unique opportunity through all the life experiences that they have to share maybe an insight that you weren't thinking about before. Because it is always easy to go with somebody that has been around for a long time and have that experience, but
Sure.
that doesn't necessarily equate to being able to get constructive feedback, being able to get help one-on-one, and also being able to meet you wherever you're at on any time given wherever that is
Sure.
to address what those problems are.
Yeah.
I think that I bring something that most people would say or is revolutionary in that yes, I don't know all the answers, but it is about working through those together, putting you in touch with the right resources. But while we're having this time together, let me see what I can do with what I got in my scope of services
Right.
that I can provide to you. And that's the power of networking, and I think more businesses need to embrace that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, man, we're a social being. Where business networking has done more for my business in the last couple years since we've gotten out of COVID. Has done more for my business than most traditional marketing, just getting out there, meeting great people like you, people like Noah. We both know Noah over at
Noah.
Arc.
Hi, Noah, if you listen
shout out
to this.
to Noah, best gym in Mechanicsburg. But yeah, that's what's the old adage? Network's your net worth.
Yes, that's exactly it.
But it's so true. And if you can support another small business through your own small business, or work with a small business, and know that most of the money that you are giving that person is directly affecting that person, and whether they're old or young, in this day and age, with the amount of life experience that even people our age, we're very similar age, the amount of life experience that you get in this day and age, I feel like trumps maybe what the older folks maybe did.
And that's not to discredit even the older folks at all, which I'm not saying that you are either.
Yeah.
But I think that we always have this impression of these people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case, as technological advances have really revolutionized the way that we interact with each other, how we go home, and in the convenience of life.
Right.
But even has helped us with medical and other sort of business-related processes. It has changed the landscape. And I say that most people might not know what those are, especially if they're in a more advanced part of their life. I think that if you want to have the practical ideas, go to somebody that is a little bit more experienced. But if you want to have a more well-rounded experience, you surround yourself with as many people as you possibly can to help create that circle for you.
I love that, man. I love that. Well, Josh, I don't know. I feel like we have to have a part 2, because we're gonna sit here for 2 hours. I could probably talk to you for the rest of the night.
Yeah, I would love it,
dude. I would love to have you back for a part 2, man, because I think you have so much more that you can share. I feel like we've only hit like the tip of the iceberg here.
Yeah.
I try to keep the podcast short, so people can get to, like, business owners don't have a lot of time, and keep it short for them so they can get something valuable out of it, and learn about a great entrepreneur like yourself. So let us know who you are, man. Let us know one more time. Who's your business? How can people get in contact with you? Give us the rundown again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So my business is Your Speaking Voice, LLC. It is located on Trindle Road, right down in outskirts of Carlisle, right down the road. Yeah, right down the road from where we're at here. And my website is www.yourspeakingvoice.biz. Go check me out. I have all kinds of different resources. Schedule a time with me. I always do my first consultation for free, because that gets to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
See what we're doing and see if we're a good fit.
Right on.
And my phone number is 717-422-6724. If you just want to avoid all of that and just talk to a real human being.
That's all right. Let's support small business. Let's talk to real human beings, because ChatGPT is not going to give you the level. I'm pumped right now after talking to you. ChatGPT is not going to give you the feels like this guy's going to give you, seriously. Yeah. So let's get out there. Let's support great small businesses like Josh. Man, thank you again for so much for coming in. Let's do a part 2, and man, I'm very, very pumped. Thank you so much again, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, man.